As you know, our LCS is Cowabunga Comics, Lake Country, Wisconsin's best pop culture destination for new comics, back issues, gaming, retro video games, vinyl, and figures. Give them a call, 262-569-9999. Check them out online at cowabungacomics.com or follow them on Twitter at Incredicow. They are our LCS, and we utilize their deep discount mail order service to bring Oconomowoc, Wisconsin closer to us. They'll take care of you. Tell them Drew and Kyle sent you. Say hi to Eric and James from us. If you need an LCS, you can't go wrong with Cowabunga Comics.
Aloha, it's Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing comic book writer, three-time Ringo-nominated editor, and a friend of the podcast, Eric Palicki. He is here to promote his latest Kickstarter, Dreamcatchers. It is a 36-page Lovecraft-infused horror comic one-shot. Now, this campaign starts on October 1st and ends on October 30th. Now, Eric, welcome back to the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jason. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much, Eric.
Sure.
And like I said, Eric, I'm sorry, Eric. What was that?
I was just going to say thank you so much for having me again. It is always a pleasure to talk to you. So I'm excited to get into it yet again.
Oh, Eric, thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me another opportunity to interview you. Thank you very much. All right. Now, for new listeners of the show, now please check some of Eric's past works. Now, Eric was an editor and a writer on a couple of original graphic novels from the publisher A Wave Blue World. One of the graphic novels was called All We Ever Wanted, Stories of a Better World. That is a science fiction anthology graphic novel. He was an editor and writer also on their other graphic novels that was horror anthology, Deadbeats and Deadbeats 2, London Calling. Oh, I love those. Those anthologies are very good. I love it, Eric. That was great. Oh. And also, too, he's written for Black Mass, No Angel, that he co-wrote with his sister, Adrian. He also wrote Atlantis Wasn't Built for Tourists for Scout Comics, Ninja Kaiden from Black Box, and one of his other Kickstarters that we talked about a couple years ago, Manticore. Oh my God, that's so good, Eric. I love that. That story is great, and I'm sorry I'm going to put a little pressure on you. I'm still waiting for the other volumes to come out.
You and me both.
Okay.
You and me.
And also too, from Ahoy Comics, he wrote 2 volumes of Blacksmith, and Blacksmith: The Key to His Heart, and Tom Pyre and Stuart Moore, Sarah Litt, and Hart Seeley, please greenlight Volume 3 of Blacksmith, because Blacksmith, The Key to His Heart, how that ended, I still want to see, more stories. That was a good one. So listeners, please check out that series as well too. Eric, did I miss anything, or do you want to add anything you want listeners to check out?
I have a long and storied career, but those are the books that I think I'm most proud of at this point. So I really appreciate you highlighting some of the best ones. I do want to shout out, just for clarity, because my co-editors may be listening, that I did share that best anthology nomination with Matt Miner on All We Ever Wanted and Maybe Someday, and with Joe Corello on Deadbeats.
Yes.
That was 3 years in a row that we got nominated, but we never won. I started to feel a little bit like Susan Lucci, but we will, like the book is titled, Maybe Someday.
Yes. Yes. All right. Also, too, Eric, I want to thank you for an advanced reading copy of Dreamcatchers. Thank you very much. That helped me prepare for this interview. Thank you very much. All right, Eric, I'm going to ask, where can listeners follow you on social media?
Sure. I am at Eric Palicki on all of the socials, Instagram. These days, I prefer to spend my time on Blue Sky or Threads, but I do also maintain an account on Twitter. It will never be X in my book. It will always be Twitter. But yes, I've been posting more on Blue Sky and Instagram than anywhere else lately. So please come find me at Eric Palicki there.
Okay, all right. Eric, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to just jump right in. Dreamcatchers. Now, listeners, before I start asking Eric questions, please note that this is not related to the Stephen King book, Dreamcatcher. I just want to make that clear. All right. So, Eric, I'm going to start off with what is the story about? What is Dreamcatchers about?
Yeah, Dreamcatchers is the story of Dana, who is a young woman who has been suffering her entire life from nightmare-induced insomnia. She visits a mysterious institute called the Erebus Institute, where she learns that her nightmares, her literal nightmares, are using her to escape into our world. In exchange for help curing her insomnia, she agrees to work with that institute to hunt down those errant nightmares. And of course, there is more to the story, as we would hope, as the story unfolds.
And then you already mentioned one of your characters, actually Dana. So like you've already talked about Dana. And then Dana also comes she meets up with, I guess, is it the person that the head of the institute, is it MB? Is that correct?
So yes. So in the script, and is that her name is Mary Beth. Mary Beth Giacomo, but she goes by MB, and Dana has over time shortened it to MB.
Oh, okay. All right. And then, okay, so how did you come up with this story?
So I'm going to take you down a little bit of a, I'm going to probably make a short story long here. I apologize.
That's fine. Yeah.
Some years ago, I was approached by a couple of friends who were putting together an anthology themselves. The anthology was called 21st Century Pulp. And their intention was to do short comic stories with a modern sensibility, but also drawing on some of the traditions of pulp fiction. Whether it's the detective story or the sort of cosmic Lovecraftian horror story, Conan style sword and sorcery, things like that. And so I was very excited about this anthology, and I partnered with an artist named Nima Sorat. Nima has done some great work for AIT Planet Lar, doing a story called Monster Attack Network with Mark Bernardin. And also he did a book called Graveslingers at IDW. So Nima's an industry veteran. And so we partnered up and we did this kind of Lovecraftian horror story in 8 pages that told Dana's story.
Yes.
And I really liked it. And I was very excited about it. And then the 2 people who were working on the anthology, 21st Century Pulp, had a falling out, unfortunately, and they ended up scrapping the project. So I had an 8-page story that was entirely illustrated and nothing to do with it. So it went into a drawer and into the back of my mind. So then we fast forward a couple of years later, last year, coming out of COVID, my very good friend John Bivens, who is an illustrator who's worked for Image on books like Spread and Dark Engine, as well as for Vault Comics doing The Devil's Red Bride and Creature Feature. And he had a gap in his schedule, and he said, "Hey, do you have, a single issue's worth of material that you want to throw together and work on together?" Because we had known each other as friends for a long time, but had never collaborated. So we ended up I ended up pulling this story out of the drawer, dusted it off. I expanded the script from 8 pages to 22. Put a little bit more meat on in the middle of the story, and I sent it off. It really works with John's sensibilities because he's really good at drawing goopy, slimy monsters and otherworldly terror. And he loved it, and he illustrated the 22-page version, and here we are. So the long story short is I had a 22-page version of a story, an 8-page version of the same story, and still nothing to do with them. So that brings us to Kickstarter and wanting to do just a one-shot, single-issue story. As you know, having read it, it's a very open-ended story, and it does kind of create a world that we could use to do some further exploration, of Dana and the world she inhabits and these monsters. But if this is all we ever get, I still think it provides a satisfying, if somewhat downbeat story. And it kind of, I think, really does a good job of hitting that sort of Lovecraftian sense of hopelessness that was the intent of the original story, as far as like hitting that particular pulp tradition.
Okay. Sorry, no, because listeners, I read the story and I'm making it clear. I'm not gonna spoil it. It's okay. Ooh. Now, because yes, it's like I said, Eric, I love it. And all I can tell you is I love the character of Dana. I don't want to get into too much details because then it starts spoiling the story, but it's just great. I just love the story. I'm gonna ask you a dumb question, because the story takes place. Does the story takes place in New York?
Yes, New York City, or a version of New York City, a heightened, somewhat fantastical version of New York City, but yes.
Now I'm gonna, like I said, you already saw my question. Like, is there a deeper meaning, like why you place Dana, and the creatures in a large city, such as like not only someone who's suffering from nightmares and dreams, but also could these creatures like be feeding off of someone's dreams and ambitions to be, let's say, either a stockbroker or like, a high-powered lawyer, and the only place to do it is in a big city. It's like, is this like another source of food for these monsters to feed off of?
Something I recall from one of our previous conversations is just how thoughtful you are as a reader, and something about you that I very much appreciate, Jason, because you kind of can see the themes and subtext at work a lot more than a lot of readers do. So I really appreciate you kind of pointing out that there is always kind of that idea of what happens when your dreams become nightmares and you're trying to escape them, literally, and how do you make a life for yourself when you can't, when you can't follow your dreams because your dreams are literally trying to kill you.
No. Oh no, but Eric, thank you very much thank you very much. Yeah, it was just something I was thinking about, is because I love the and I'm not gonna give because Dana has to hunt down these creatures. Oh, and I love the creatures. God, man, they're so one of we can't, I don't want to tell anything, I don't want to spoil anything, but I love one scene. I think you know which part I'm going to talk about, where Dana comes across, she kills one of them, but then one of them sort of kind of attacks her. That's all I'm going to say. I just thought that scene was great. Okay. So I'm going to ask, how did you come up with the title of Dreamcatchers? What's the meaning behind that?
Well, I think in this case, it was a simpler is better. because she is literally hunting nightmares.
Yeah.
So, and a dream catcher is uh, a First Nations tradition. There is such a thing as a dream catcher, which is the
Yes.
idea that you would hang it in your window while you
Mm-hmm.
slept, and it would prevent it. It was designed to prevent nightmares from hurting you. So that's exactly what Dana's job is now. It is making that kind of that concept real and removing the sort of metaphorical aspect from it. And then she is literally trying to stop nightmares from hurting other people.
Oh,
So
that is so cool. That's nice. Okay, you already mentioned your artists. May I ask who is the colorist for this issue? Because you worked with two different artists.
yes, and that's a good question. John Bivens colored his own work.
Okay.
In fact, he wanted to letter the book as well, but we kind of reached a mutual agreement that his lettering is maybe the weakest link in his very impressive portfolio of skills. So the letterer on both John's version and Nima's version is Rob Jones, who is a talented letterer that I've worked with before. And for Nima's story, that was colored by Henry Lopez, who is a South American colorist. This is kind of his first work. I think he did a really good job on it. The story was originally intended to be black and white, so he had to kind of do a lot of work to make the black and white story work in color, and I think he did a really fine job.
I'm gonna say he did. The colors he did in Nima's story is very good. It's like, yes, it is. It's very good.
And then something that's something that I like about this book is that we have two different artists tackling fundamentally the same material, but neither one had seen the other's interpretation of the story. So you get two very different versions of how the monsters look, two very different versions of how Dana looks, just based on the notes that I have in my script. And I think that's a very cool experiment, and that's a very cool thing to see that I don't know that you often get the opportunity to see how different artists interpret the same material. And in fact, one of the rewards in the Kickstarter will be a digital deluxe edition that will include the scripts for the book, so you'll actually be able to see what that originating material looked like before Nima and John interpreted it.
Oh, that's gonna be pretty cool. That's gonna be nice. So let's talk about the reward tiers.
Sure.
I know, you're gonna have one just like for the digital copy. You're gonna have one for also people to get the digital and the hard copy. Is any other rewards? Any other reward tiers?
Yeah, I'm keeping it simple, and in so doing, I may have made it more complicated than it needs to be. Sorry in advance, everyone. But so yes, I'm going to offer a digital version, which is just the book. A no frills digital copy.
Yes.
And then a deluxe edition, which will, like I said, include both the digital copy and the script book digitally. And then we'll have physical rewards. We have two different covers, one drawn by John, and that will be our standard cover. And then going back once again to 21st Century Pulp, my very good friend Richard Pace, who is himself, a very established artist, does Second Coming for Ahoy, has done covers for Vertigo, and has been around forever. And just, an all-around fantastic artist and person. He had done the original cover for that 21st Century Pulp anthology,
Mm-hmm.
And much like my story and script, his cover kind of was left to lie fallow because the anthology wasn't happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I reached out to him and I said, hey, you did this cover a few years ago. Would it be okay if I used it as the limited edition variant cover for this campaign I'm running? And he said, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And so that will be limited to, there'll be 2 tiers at which that cover is available, one by
Mm-hmm.
itself, and then one where you'll be able to get both covers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then we'll be offering the first we have what for early bird rewards. We've set this sort of we've decided to set it as the first. We've set limits, so the first
Yeah.
100 copies of the regular cover will be at a early bird price. The first 20 copies of the limited cover will be early bird price, etc.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, thank you. All right. Um, let's see. I know that there are a lot of factors, and you already talked about that this is going to be if it's just this is like a one shot, and I'm going to ask. You already know I'm going to ask this question, but like because there's a lot of factors if the campaign is successful, and basically the availability of the artist. You know, um, how many? Do you have plans of expanding this? I mean, or do you have like a story arc or
Well, so you opened this interview, Jason,
Yes.
to excoriating me for my lack of a second volume of Manticore. And so
I'm sorry.
it's okay. I'm teasing you, of course.
Hmm.
So I don't wanna make that mistake again and make promises
Yeah.
about future stories that that I can't deliver on. Let's see how the first campaign does. If it's successful, I think John would absolutely be amenable to continuing the long form version of the story,
Hmm.
uh, and as would I. I
Hmm.
have obviously, even though this particular chapter ends, like I said, on a down note, I think it
Yes.
does stand as a fairly self-contained bit of narrative. So I don't think readers will feel disappointed in the material they're getting with this first issue.
Hmm.
But to answer your question, again, this is a long answer to a short
No, no.
question. We do hope that we can do more, but let's measure the success of this one before I make too many promises.
No. Yeah, I understand because it's a fascinating world. It's a fascinating world that Dana lives in. I don't want to. It's it's just because it's like that's all I'm going to say. I can't say any more because you know, but but um, yeah. I just love the character Dana, and I love how she's hunting these nightmares in reality, and it's that's all I'm going to say. Yeah, I'm just going to stop at that. Um, what was one thing that you love making this one shot?
I I really like that I'm able to work with my friends. That's
Mm-hmm.
always exciting. It's always a pleasure to do that. It's always fun to see how they're going to interpret my work.
Yes.
Uh, I I I really like the story. I think that I'm kind of starting to settle into a niche as a writer, doing these kind of noir adjacent horror stories, and I feel like this is me finding a comfort zone. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited for people to give it a read.
All right, Eric, thank you very much for that. I let's see. So I know what your next convention appearance is going to be, but I'm going to ask you, for listeners, can you let listeners know what's your next convention appearance or store appearance for the rest of the year? What's your schedule like?
So I have one more show this year. It is New
Uh-huh.
York Comic Con, which is the middle of October, 16th through 19th, I think.
Yeah, something.
I,
I want to say something like that. Yeah.
or 17th through 20th. Regardless, I will be at that show. I'm very excited. I've done that show pretty much every year since its inception. I will be at table D14 in Artist Alley. If you come by and you let me know that you've backed the Kickstarter, maybe I'll have a little treat for you. Um, so I'm hoping to have some sort of a cross promotion with the Kickstarter.
Oh, that's gonna be so cool. That's so cool. And you know what's gonna be nice too is, um, because we talked about a little bit before we started the interview, but because that's gonna be like the second week, that'll be kind of like the second week of the Kickstarter campaign, and that'll be nice for you to talk to your fans about, hey, I got this Kickstarter and that's pretty cool. And like you said, if people already backed it, they get a little treat. But then also too, it's a nice way also to promote that. Hey, again, your Kickstarter is live. Please consider backing it. That's going to be pretty. And then you can tell them what the story is about as well too. That's so cool. You know. Um, just an off the cuff question while you're at New York Comic Con, you know, do you have maybe like some preview pages that you can show them of Dreamcatchers at the show?
Yeah, I will have my iPad with the material available. There will also be a lot of preview pages on the campaign page.
Oh yes.
We've built out the campaign page with a lot of preview pages for both versions of the story. So it'll be nice to be able to show people more.
That's so cool. Um, any closing words to our listeners?
Just a continued appreciation for the fans who read my work, new listeners who may be discovering it as a result of this campaign, as a result of this interview, and then just a general thanks to you once again, Jason, for having me on the show again. I'm certain this will not be our last conversation, and it's always a pleasure.
Eric, again, just Eric, mahalo. Just thank you for giving me another opportunity to interview. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you very much for making comics. I love your work. You know, um, you know, listeners, you guys have heard, you know, uh, I love the Blacksmith series. That's great. I've already read, like an advanced reading copy, of Dreamcatchers. It's a great one shot. I it's very good. It's really good. Um, and Eric, I want to wish you all the success with your Kickstarter called Dreamcatchers. Now, listeners, this campaign starts on October 1st and ends on October 30th. If you are a new comic book reader or a lifelong comic book reader who loves Lovecraftian horror, please check out the Dreamcatchers Kickstarter. Again, I just love this issue. I can't tell you any more because I'm afraid I'm going to spoil it for all of you. And Eric, I'm being serious on this part. Listeners, if you know someone who loves comics, especially horror comics, please consider backing this campaign and give this to a friend or a family member as a gift. It's very good. I love John Bivens' art and Nima Sorat's art. It's very good. It's really good. I want to thank Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. And I want to thank you, the listener. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
It's been a while since we've thanked our patrons from patreon.com/comicsfromprofit, and we want to reiterate just how important those folks are to us, and I don't thank them enough. We try to encourage folks to check out our Patreon get in there, get involved in our Slack, get involved in free stuff, some of our swag, and be a supporter of the show. And I wanted to do a shout out, because I haven't done a shout out for a while, to some of our patrons. So a quick rattling off. Joe, thank you to Joe Petrowski, Sergey Vishwakarma, G King, David Fink, Martin Ferretti, Christopher Ellis, Louis Velasco, David Donovan, Dennis Chandler, John Saavedra, Darren Williams, Nolan Sasher, Aaron Miller, Bradley Rader, Joy Garlington or Joey Garlington, I think probably Joey, Andrew Clark, John Abel, Charlie Churchill, Eric Helwig, and Singular. So a nice little shout out to some of our patrons. We could always use more. We appreciate those who are patrons over at Patreon, and thank you so much for your support. It helps pay the bills. And podcasting ain't free, and we appreciate all those who throw a couple shekels our way. So once again, thank you, patrons.